Hi everyone, welcome to another 3 Looks 1 palette. Forest shipping has been a little bit questionable, but I guess I still can't complain. I finally did get my Dream collection in the mail. I don't know if this is going to be a problem for some of you guys, but it has been noted that spontaneous has been spontaneously scrambled. There is a typo. It is now pronounced spontaneous. So it appears that this is a problem with a lot of palettes under Sephora's jurisdiction, but if this happens to you, I would say go ahead and reach out to customer service and let them know, just so that they can kind of see the extent of the issue. I really don't know what they are going to do about it. I don't even know what they could do about it, to be honest, besides just hope nobody else cares about it and sell it through, because it would really be such a waste to throw these all away. But disclaimer, yes, there is a typo on the palette shade. Everything else about it looks fine. It arrived safely. So with that out of the way, I'm going to demo the eye palette. I'll do a look, and then I'm going to use the face palette. I'm going to try to use some capacity of the face palette in all 3 looks, just so that we can really mess around with it. This time I didn't even powder my face. I only powdered kind of my T-zone and under my eyes, so that way I can use all the creams, because the face palette has a lot of creams. So first things first, I kind of want to do just kind of like a comfy, easy look. It's a lot late at night for me to be filming this, but this didn't arrive in the mail until the evening, so here we are. So I'm just going to do something super simple in coral, and I think it'll be really fun. I'm going to start off with this shade right here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to start off with this shade right here. I'm just going to do something light and easy today, and I'm just going to start this shade up here. And I'm going to be putting some darker shades down on my eyelids, so I'm just focusing this in the top. And I primed my eyes using the NARS Smudge Proof Eye Base today. It's a little bit gross in the house today. I can only turn the AC so far down before I freeze, so it just gets humid in here sometimes. Yeah, I like that so far. And then I'm just going to go ahead and apply that pretty broadly on the lower lash line too. I'm going to let the eyeshadow go kind of just pretty far down this time. I'm just using a really big fluffy brush from the It Brushes line, which I really do like It Brushes. Very good synthetic brushes. And now I'm going to be taking the same brush. I am going to go into this shade here. I'm going to do something nice and warm. It's definitely my comfy kind of warm brown, so I'll just use it. The palette overall does kind of feel like it's divided into 2 halves, so there's like a half that's really warm, and then there's a half that's not as warm. I wouldn't necessarily say it's cool. I feel like usually I would lay down this dark brown first and then blend it out with the light coral, but then today I laid down the light shade first and laid this down second. Yeah, the blend is just so easy. I love how this looks. My eyes are a little asymmetrical these days. I can't tell if it's aging. I can't tell if it's lash serum and I need to stop. I can't tell if it's contact lens use. Don't ask me. We're not getting any younger over here. I'm gonna go back into the first shade I used, and I'm just gonna make sure it's nice and blended on top. Okay, and now I'm going to switch to a firmer brush, and I'm going to go back into that brown, and I'm going to add some darkness, and I see gnats. I think it's time to put out the gnat traps. I just want to make sure this brown is a little bit darker. It's not like objectively a super dark shade, but I just want to get it to full saturation. And it does build really nicely, so no complaints from me. Yeah, that is such a beautiful brown. That's what it's looking like so far. Just such a seamless, easy blend. I've only used 2 shades so far, but that's alright. I'm gonna go and dive into these shimmers now, and I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to use Thrill, which is right here. I was thinking of using the gold, but I really want to juxtapose the gold with one of the darker shades, so I'm going to save that for later. It definitely has a lot of shine to it, so I'm hopeful that this will be one of her better metallics. Yeah, that's a really pretty finish. Layer it until I'm happy. I'm going to use a brush so that I can apply more precisely where I want it. I don't want to cover up all this brown that I just worked so hard to put down. It's a little bit on the chunky side, so I would not recommend using it dry. It'll definitely benefit from going in wet, but once you lay it down, it has such a pretty translucent quality to it, very glossy, glass-like. So I'm really glad to see that this shade is a little bit more on the shiny side. I do see a couple shades in here that may not be as shiny, but we'll see. Generally speaking, I'm not really a fan of her more satiny formula. but that's just because I've made it very clear in several videos now that I'm just such a fan of like the super bling bling shades. Obviously there is a time and place for her more subtle formula, and I know a lot of people really like it. Okay, so I love how that looks. Not really a ton of contrast to this look, but it's just so simple, which is just the way I like it. So I will kind of just see if I can wipe off this brush a little bit that I used, and I'm going to go into Spontaneous. Spontaneous. It's the light shade here. I presume this is going to be an inner corner shade I'm using a lot in this video. And I do like when her inner corner shades are a little bit more of that smooth satiny formula, because it really smooths out the inner corner and adds just such a beautiful highlight. Whenever she has an inner corner highlight that is more kind of smooth and satiny, I do actually really like that. So as you can see, total awesomeness here. Okay, I'm gonna go into more Thrill just so I can blend it into Spontaneous. Okay, so that is what it's looking like. It is just everything that I could have ever wanted. I do think I could benefit from a little bit of depth, so I am going to take a very tiny brush and I'm going to go into darker shade here. This is definitely more of a neutral brown. Otherwise, my look is a little bit flat. Okay, so I just added a little bit to the outer corners, like just like the tiniest dab, just to add a little bit of depth. I don't want to add too much. Okay, so I added just a teeny tiny little bit of depth. This is not going to be the last time you see me use that dark brown, I promise. It'll be back. But I just needed just a little bit extra something. But before I go off camera, it is time for me to demo the little face trio. Now this is a cream. This is a cream base, and then this is a powder. Now this cream, the cream base, it looks like the I Need a Nude highlighter, right? But it actually is very emollient and very creamy feeling once you actually stick your hand in it. I'm gonna try and use this kind of more dispersed brush. I don't want to put on too much blush, but yeah, it's a little bit, as you can see, it's quite neutral tone and this look is quite warm, but I do want to see what it looks like. We'll have fun with it. I want to see how dewy and moisturizing it ends up being. Like, is it going to kind of set down? Is it a little bit more on the matte side? I do not like it when my cream products are super dewy because they eat my foundation. So I didn't powder my whole face, but I always get nervous when I try cream products for the first time. Stippling very gently across my face, trying my best to not disturb any of my foundation. And so far it's not looking too bad. My brush accidentally swiped the inner part of my face, so ignore that. I was not supposed to put blush there. I'm just super picky about my cream blushes, so I can't necessarily say it's impressing me, but it's not lifting my foundation. It doesn't feel sticky. If I touch it with my finger, it honestly feels more on the moussey side, and you can see on my finger how it has a very natural finish. My blush is a little heavier, but I like heavy blush, so we'll call that good. Okay, so now it's time to try this highlight base. I'm gonna switch to another brush. I'm just wanting to use a brush for all this, really. Alright, I'm gonna switch to a different brush and put this on, and let's see if putting this on takes off what's underneath as well. Okay, so far I'm not seeing any lifting. It feels a little bit stickier on my face than the cream cheek does. It almost feels like a glossy balm, but thankfully it's not like that extreme, or else I would hate it. And it seems if you I'm tapping it on very gently with my brush and it's not lifting up what's underneath, and because of the fact that it's a cream, it is giving a very beautiful glow that is not usually something you get very easily with powders. I actually really like this. And now lastly I'm gonna do the Dream Glow, which is the standard powder. It is a super soft creamy powder. I'm just going to, and it's gonna stick to that cream base, so I'm just going to very carefully apply it. You can see it's really upping the shine there. I'm also going to go ahead and put some under my brow area. This might be a little too dark for my nose, but we're going to try it today. Yeah, we're not going to get away with this, so this is not going to be a nose highlighter for me, sadly. I see cast, but it was worth a try. It does go really well on top of the cream, sticks to it really nicely. I can see this glow cream base being something I use under other kinds of highlighters, like for example under the Odin's Eye Solmon highlighter. Now I'm gonna finish off the rest of my face and I'll be back to finish this first look. Okay, this is gonna be the finished look. And I just love how simple everything turned out. I'm wearing Doe Lashes Cloud9 1.0. I put a little bit of eyeliner on my inner corners. With how glossy and with such an interesting finish on my cheeks, just such a beautiful shine that my skin currently has from the glow cream base, I decided to use a glossy lip, and I specifically went for my Romand. I specifically used the Romand 09 Cotton Melba Dewy Full Water Tint as the base, and then I went in over the center of my lips using YesStyle's Water Stain Lipstick in 602. I specifically used these because they both have that glassy, translucent, watery finish, and I really wanted to mimic and echo the kind of glassy look that is currently sitting on my cheeks. Everything to me looks so beautiful, so I hope that this first demo of everything so far has you guys interested. I hope that this was really helpful for you guys. There's 2 more looks and I'm going to try and incorporate and continue to demo the cheek trio in all 3 looks. I'm gonna move on to the next look. Hey everyone, okay. Look number 2, and today I'm going to do the purple and gold that I said I was going to do. So I really want to use these 2 cream to powder shades. Historically I've had problems with it. I feel like it's come a long way, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with the darkest shade. I'm just gonna go straight in and we're just going to start framing out the outer corner. I want to do like a dark outer half and a lighter colored inner half. And right now I do want to make sure everything blends okay. And I will be using other shades to blend it out, so if it doesn't look perfect, it's fine. And I just used the Rare Beauty primer today. I just wanted to see how it would work with these shadows. Generally speaking, my Rare Beauty primer works fine with Natasha Denona formulas, so I'm definitely kind of seeing like little lumps of the cream to powder go onto my eyelid. But when you push at them, they kind of break down and smudge out and blend out really easily, so you're not seeing like little flecks and flakes everywhere. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of just wipe the brush a little bit, and now I'm going to go into the shade here, and I'm going to start building that gradient across the middle of my eyelid, and I'm going to stop at the inner part. Okay, now I'm going to switch to smaller brushes and I'm going to start doing some detail work. But we'll see how dark I can get it. It would definitely be nice if her cream to powders went as dark as they looked in the pan, because I know with eyeshadow it can be confusing where you feel like you're getting a lot of depth only to put on your eyelid and you're like, oh, it's not as much depth as I thought it was. But this so far seems to be building pretty well. I have a little pimple on my eyelid and so it's kind of gripping to it up here, so just ignore that. And then I'm just going to use my finger to try and kind of smooth things out a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to start working this on the lower lash line. And then I'm going to go back into the other pink, so I'm going to go into this one and I'm going to just kind of start blending out the gradients a little bit more. And then I'm going to clean off the brush a little bit first. And now I'm going to go into this shade here. This is going to just be a powder matte, and I'm going to use this to just blend out all these edges. Okay, yeah, looking pretty good so far. I think I got a pretty good amount of depth out of that cream to powder shade actually. It does go pretty deep. Okay, so now it's time to add the shimmers. I do think that adding the shimmers is going to be a lot more transformative to this look. So I'm going to be taking that gold that I talked about and I'm going to place that on the middle of my eyelid. Ooh, this one picks up pretty well with a brush. So I actually am going to place it on the inner third first. I might place a darker shade on the middle. Yeah, it's a little bit kind of see-through feeling, so I'm gonna use my finger and put on more. There we go. Looks a lot better with the finger. So it's very sparkly, definitely has more of a translucency to it, really, really pretty. I would say if you want this to stick down better, you'll want to use some kind of really tacky base. It's actually not as stark gold as I thought it would be, but that's kind of for me like a good thing because I do have a lot of gold. So this brings something new to the table for me. And then I really want to use this shade in the middle of my eyelid, which it's called Babies. I mean, I guess babies are some people's dream, but that is the definitive opposite of my dream personally, so. This one is so pretty. It feels, this is a very nice, smooth, creamy foiled metallic, and I cannot resist a good taupe. I'm gonna go ahead and use that shade on my lower lash line because I like it so much. And so far I've managed to keep the shimmer fallout to a minimum, so considering I'm using these all dry with a brush, that is definitely a good thing. It's so funny that this shade, I like it so much when I'm like, no babies for me, thank you. Okay, yeah, that really cinched the look for me. And I kind of want to use that shade to add kind of just a more glistening, bright feel to the inner corner. I want to put it along the top part here. I know Bad to the Brow does this a lot, and I feel like it just adds such a nice little extra something to her looks. It adds a little extra something, and it kind of also like shapes the look. So if I'm dragging eyeshadow too close to my brow, using this light shimmer here, it almost feels like it kind of pulls the look back down a little bit without having to like use concealer or something. Inner corner of my lower lash line. If you're like contentious about her cream to powder formula, then there are only 2 cream to powders in this palette and they're both very dark, so that does kind of help make them a little bit better. I don't really like it when she has a cream to powder that's light because that to me feels super pointless. Let's go ahead and move on to her face palette. I am just going to use the highlights, so let me just quickly throw on a blush and then I'll be back to demo the highlighters. We're going to use these 2 shades here today only. I'll use the blush in the third look again. So using just a highlighter brush, I'm going to go into the Glow Cream base and it's going to just carefully get placed on my cheek. Well, I used a brush last time. You know what? I'm going to use a finger today. I'm curious about finger application, if it's going to take off what's underneath. So you can see with a finger I'm able to diffuse it a lot more than with a brush. Okay, I don't currently see any product getting taken off, so that's a good start. I'm going to go ahead and even just pull it all the way into the inner part of my face so I can just get that really just glassy glow. This is a glass skin highlighter right here. Do you see how that makes my skin just look like it's transparent almost? I high-key don't even want to put the powder highlighter on top of this. Like I did that in the last video. You know what? I'm just going to use this and leave it as is. And by the time I finish my makeup and my eyes and everything, I'm going to see if this sets or if it stays sticky. Alright, I'll be back. This is going to be my finished look. I love how this eye look turned out. I just love the variety of shimmer finishes that are on my eyelid. I feel like I just keep turning my head in the mirror looking at how my eyes look. I just love how this looks. I have Cloud 9 lashes from Doe Lashes, just the 1.0. The highlighter ended up settling down. I cannot feel any tack on my hands anymore. I didn't put on any setting powder before putting on the blush and highlight, and I actually forgot to use setting powder before turning the camera on for the finished look, and it set down and it's not really transferring. I don't have any complaints about this highlighter. I am just simply amazed. I think this is going to be my favorite part of the trio for sure. It's just going to be this Glow Cream highlighter. I am truly stunned at how beautiful that this manages to make my skin look. I don't know what to say. I am speechless about this highlighter, and of course the eye look too. So pretty. Everything's pretty. I feel so pretty. And then for my lips, I lined my lips, and then I used the YSL, I used 2 shades from the YSL Velvet Radical. I used 304, which is going to be this really pretty pink. It's what I have all over my lips. And then to contour my lips and to do gradient lips, I use a darker shade, 308. This is more of kind of a pink leaning red, as you can see here. This is probably going to end up being a 4 looks 1 palette, which I think is fine. Natasha Denona deserves her due. This is very expensive. It's $4 more than her previous midi price. She has increased their prices. So I just want to be helpful and thorough for you guys. So yeah, we'll be on to the third look now. Hi everyone, back for the third look, and it is 10:15 p.m. at night, which here we are. I just got another Poke. I'm feeling good right now, so I thought I'd go ahead and sit down and film. I was so totally supposed to film earlier this afternoon, but I am still playing Xenoblade 3, and I've almost got 100 hours in it now, and I'm still nowhere near complete. So here we are. So I'm going to start with, I think I'm going to start with Nurture, which is that cool tone taupe, and I'm going to use that all over my eyelid just to set down my base. I think I'll go from light to dark today and just see how that does. I go from dark to light so often that I pretty much never go from light to dark, and I definitely know there's some formulas out there that seem to have a preference for what order you stack your shadows in. In my experience, it doesn't really matter with Natasha Denona, which should definitely be the case considering how expensive her palettes are. And I'm using a pretty dense synthetic brush, so it's laying on quite a bit of pigment, but I did also, like, I'm barely tapping into the pan, so it kind of doesn't lay down a totally opaque layer. And as you can see, I'm mostly just using stamping motions right now. We're just trying to get this laid down. I did beat the final boss, but I'm trying to do all the post-game stuff. I'm going to use a fluffier brush, and I'm going to go back into that same shade, and this time I'm just going to make sure it's applied evenly everywhere. So I did go a little heavy on this eye, so I'm just going to take a clean brush and just kind of work at it a little bit. I'm going to switch to a flatter brush, and I'm going to go into Aspiration, which is that really dark brown. This is a powder matte, and I'm going to start, yeah, you can see this lays down super nice and dark. And I'm just going to start doing a vertical gradient of sorts. Well, more of a diagonal gradient I think will be more flattering for this look. I'm going to go up and out, and then I'm gonna blend in as well. And then I'll take what's left and use that on the lower lash line. And I think I'm gonna keep the lower lash line pretty basic and clean, so I'm gonna kind of just let the shadow stick closer. Yeah, this dark brown matte is like everything to me. One of my favorite shades in the palette for sure. It is so easy to use, and I'm getting very little fallout as well. It's a lot better looking on this eye because this eye, the shade Nurture went too dark, so you can see the contrast a lot better on my left eye. So my left eye looks a lot better, but once I have the multi-chrome on top, that should kind of help with evening things out. And I love this dark brown. It is just so easy. It blended out with so little effort. I feel like this is all I need to put on. So now I'm going to take Vision, which is that trio chrome. I'm a little nervous just because it's that red and green that I don't necessarily really like, that all the mainstream brands who do trio chrome seem to just have to do. Like, I know Pat McGrath did it twice. And not my favorite, and I do wish we could have something else, but here we are. And I'm going to try this with a brush. I'm trying it dry, and it seems like it picks up pretty well. And this is just going to go in the center. I think against this darker backdrop, it should look alright, because this does have a bit of a base to it. So by putting it on darker eyeshadow, if I blend it out and the base shows through, it won't be necessarily as weird looking. It's definitely not on the level of like an indie, like Cleona Forge, I think is what it is. It's definitely not like as oiled and opaque as that, but I like how I can sheer it out. I like how when I sheer it out here, I'm really just not seeing, it's not getting ashy like the Cleona jeweled ones are prone to doing. Like the jeweled ones from Cleona, if you're not applying an opaque layer, then you might as well as not use it, because if you try and sheer those out, they're going to turn gray since the base is so strong, which is why I prefer Cleona's Vibrant line, is because there's no base. I'm really not picking up on it right now, and that makes me wonder if this shade has very little base. And if that's the case, then I can definitely say that I love this one. This is going to be my favorite red to green multi-chrome in my collection because I just love it. I don't really like multi-chromes with dark bases. I've just had to come to accept that. Now on the brush, I feel like I'm seeing some base, but it's just so hard to pick up. Even on my inner corner, I sheared it out here, and it's really just, the base is not coming through to the degree that it would if I used, say, Forge. Yeah, it's like you can see it a little bit from this angle, but from head on, it's not there. I'm gonna use my finger and kind of just, so on my finger you can really see the shift on my finger. I'm going to intensify it just right up close to my lash line. I don't want to ruin all that nice blending that I literally just did, but I do want it to be a little more intense just right in the center. Okay, I can get on board with this. This is really nice. And it applied nicely dry too, which is cool. This is the trio chrome that should have been in her trio chrome palette. But I still do like Trio Chrome. The mattes in that palette are like just bonkers. But okay, so the last thing is that I do need to do an inner corner highlight. So I'm just going to quickly take a small brush for that I haven't soiled yet because I need to wash my brushes. I wish I was like Tess Chung and I had all of the lid space. She has so much space between her eyebrows and her eyes, and I just don't. Like, my face is so long. I wish that my eyes and my eyebrows and everything was just lowered down so I'd have a little more forehead and then more space can be put between my eyebrows and my eyelids. I've always wanted to do looks like she just has so much space to do all kinds of funky stuff, and I feel like I have no space. And I can't do like a brow lift to get more space because then my forehead will disappear. Like, there's no winning with this. If I had more room, I feel like you could really see the multi-chromes, but multi-chromes definitely, it's hard to really make them shift well if you don't have the room. I should just be grateful for what I have. Okay, so for inner corner, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and use Spontaneous because this is the inner corner shade of this palette. For a second I was like, I wish she had more inner corner shades, but honestly, this is the perfect inner corner shade for this entire palette, so why do you need more than one if this is the perfect one? And I'm going to blend it slightly into Vision so that it doesn't look so abrupt. This is a perfect inner corner shade. And by kind of pulling my inner corner highlighter in a little further, like kind of almost touching the bridge of my nose where my bridge of my nose starts, I can really create a slimming effect for my nose bridge, make it look like it starts far more in than it actually does. Honestly, I'm just gonna call this the look. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. As you can see, the creamy powder mattes are just perfect. I honestly would not miss her cream to powders if she just did powder mattes forever. I know she's not going to stop with it because it does seem like she's having a lot of fun tweaking around with her cream to powders, but the creamy matte formula is just so good. Now we're going to move on to the face palette, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to demo everything, but now that I've like used it several times, I feel like I can do a better show of it. So for starters, I'm going to put on this blush. Now I did put on a little bit of Kogen Do brightening moisture powder all over my face, so we'll see how the cream blush goes on top of that powder. It is a very light minimal powder, so I don't foresee there to be any problems. I'm also going to use a much more soft diffused synthetic brush. The Lunar Beauty brush I used the last time, it's diffused, but it's not as soft. It's not as diffused. As you can see, there's a lot more structure to it, so it pulls the pigments around a lot more, versus this one, it's a lot more airy. It's almost like a stippling brush, but it's not as diffused as a stippling brush, which would lay down the pigment in very visible like dots. And so as you can see, by using this type of brush, it goes on really beautifully. This is a very matte cream blush formula, so I love it. I love how it goes down pretty matte. It sets down, it doesn't take off my foundation, and it blends out. Honestly, to me, I just can kind of treat it like a powder. And I did put on bronzer already. I had NARS Laguna, or the Laguna 01. You can see it's just laying down really nicely on top of everything, so this is definitely something that I will be using again. Now that I've just figured out the right way that I like to use this cream blush formula, I like it a lot more. It just took me a little bit of trial and error. You can see I'm not dragging, I'm just stippling. And this brush is very gentle, so it doesn't feel like it's scratching up my skin either. And then any excess will just go right on my nose. And you see just how beautiful that is. I love how that looks. Okay, so now for the glow cream base. My favorite way to apply the glow cream base is with a finger. I haven't noticed this taking off product underneath, but you can see on my finger, it's so pretty. I actually really like to apply this pretty generously just everywhere because it imparts such a beautiful glassy finish to the skin. Except for like right under my eyes, I could totally I just put this everywhere. Even all the way up to the inside of my face, and you can just see the kind of glow it gives. Now I do find it rather unusual to have such a matte cream blush formula and then have what feels kind of like a dewier, balmy cream highlight, but this does set down. It can set on its own without needing to be powdered, and it maintains that glow, but it's not going to be tacky at all. So then it makes a little more sense. And it's just so like, this kind of cream highlighter formula, I expected it to feel emollient and greasy and oily, but it sets down. I love how this looks. Like, I can see on my finger that there's some blush on my finger as I apply it with my finger, so I have to want to like clean my fingers on a paper towel, but visually I don't see any lifting, so what did get lifted was probably just excess product. And I'm just gonna stick this on my nose. And I love this on my nose, and it looks really pretty on the lips because it's like, you know, it's a cream. This glow cream base here is just sorcery. I don't understand. Okay, and then lastly, I love how the glow cream base looks on its own. I'm loath to put highlighter on top, but I will demonstrate the Dream Glow powder highlighter. It is a very smooth metallic feeling formula. Like you put your finger in it and it just feels so smooth. So it is a really nice formula. I just feel like I love how the glow cream base looks like on its own. So I'm just gonna barely dust some over. It is a little bit darker, so I can only use it as a blush topper. You can see here it's a lot more metallic. And it sticks really well to the glow cream base, which is kind of what it's designed to be used for. So I like to use this in the back on top of my blush, and then towards the inner part of my face I just let the glow cream base shine on its own. So then I kind of have like a gradient highlighter effect, where it's like more golden in the back. It is really pretty right above my eyeshadow. And I don't use very much, honestly. Okay, I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look. Lashes on, lips on. I kind of wanted to do like, I have a lot of nostalgia for how I used to do my lips, where I never used lip liner. I just used the lipstick I had and I just blurred it out of my lip line to hell and back. And I honestly, it's like not really like I feel like a little bit of embarrassment when I look back, because I'm like, wow, it looks so unnatural and bad, but at the same time, I don't know, I still kind of like that smudged, messy, worn in kind of look. So I did that for my lips, and then my lips are a little bit dry and I didn't want it to look too bad on like the tops and the bottoms. So the secret to that is you just use a little bit of lip gloss, dab it right in the center of the top and bottom lip, and you can hide a lot of kind of any like patchy or bad blending or whatever. So for my base, I use the Jaclyn Cosmetics Lip Cushion in Lip Locked. This is not something you want to apply straight from the applicator. You want to kind of dot it onto your lips and blend it out with your finger. So if your lips are nice and hydrated, you blot it out with your finger. It looks really nice. And then I thought it didn't really have the dimension I wanted, so I went in with the liquid lipstick You Guys, which is this very deep purple here, and I used that on the inner part of my lips to just really deepen up the entire look. So you can see it adds a lot more dimension to my lips. And then for the lip gloss, I used the Lunar Beauty lip gloss in the shade Starlight, which is the shade right here. Beautiful packaging. I do really like these. I got these during a glitch. They were 10 bucks each. If I had paid full price for it, I wouldn't have been mad, because it is a really nice formula. And then for my lashes, I'm using Cloud9 1.0, and then I have some inner corner liner just to define my inner corners a little bit, and that's the makeup look. I love how this turned out. This is my third look, so usually I would say we're wrapping it up, but I'm going to do one more look after this. There's 2 shimmers in the palette I haven't used yet, and we just can't have that on this channel, especially not with Natasha. I think it's well worth the time that I can really go in depth with this collection. I've used the face palette multiple times. I will use it again for look number 4. You can't have too many demos. I think it'll really help you guys get a good idea whether you want to spend your hard-earned money on this or not. We're gonna move on from here, but so far I have really been enjoying my experience with both palettes. I so far don't have any regrets about spending my money on it. So I'm gonna sign off. It is now 11 o'clock, so I need to go to bed. And yeah, I'll be back for look number 4, and you'll see that in just a couple seconds. I had to take a one-day break between this look and the last look because I ended up actually having a lot of vertigo, but I'm feeling a little bit better now. I took like a 5-hour long nap earlier today, which is just, whew, whatever, that's alright. So to start off with, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of start working in with the eyeshadow. Now, I feel like aside from Aspiration, there's not really many shades that work with this shimmer. There's maybe this shade and then there's Aspiration. Kind of odd to me. I've already used both shades, but I'll just go ahead and use them again because I do like them both a lot. And I think I also haven't used Blackest Black yet, and as it'll be my first time trying Natasha Denona's powder black formula, I'm definitely going to work it in somehow, and we'll just see what happens. But I'm just going to use this as kind of my base shade. I did just use the Rare Beauty eye primer, so I generally prefer the Rare Beauty eye primer for her shadows. I think it works the best with them. And as you can see, I'm just using this giant brush because I don't really need it to be like a super even layer. I just want a little bit of like contouring, honestly, before I work in with the darker eyeshadows. And I do have a developing pimple right here, so if you see shadow kind of gathering around a little circle, it's just because of this. Okay, so I'm just gonna put on just that much, and I want to go ahead and go straight into Serenity, which is that beautiful taupe. I have a feeling based on looking at it in pan, it's not gonna be as shiny as like Thrill or Invention or Babies. What a weird shadow name. But I think it'll still be really pretty. So I'm gonna use kind of a stiffer brush to go in with Serenity, and I'm gonna see how it performs. It does pick up pretty well, and I'm just going to use this as the all over color. Yeah, so as you can see, it's definitely not as foiled. And this is a really beautiful taupe shade. I really like how this looks. Using this shade just makes me want to buy single taupe cream shadows. I'm like amazed I haven't actually done that yet. I really want specifically one from Victoria Beckham, but I'm hoping to just indulge in her Black Friday sale at the end of this year. That's why I've been holding out waiting. Okay, I really love how that looks actually. Even though it's not super shiny, I can easily see this being just the easiest single eyeshadow to use for a one eyeshadow look. You can see just all on its own, it can be a single eyeshadow look, and because it's not super foiled, it's very easy to blend out if you want to. So I'm just going to put more impact on the center area, just put a little more impact. Do it on this eye as well. Yeah, this is a beautiful shade. I don't want to like tamper with this look anymore. I feel like this is the perfect look. But we do have to keep working with these shadows, so I'm going to dig into my smaller brushes and I'm going to try and fuss around with this black. So I'm going to be working with Blackest Black. I'm a little bit scared and I'm going to start with just a little bit. Yeah. I'm just gonna start tapping it out. Whenever black eyeshadows are this pigmented, it's really intimidating for me. I don't really consider myself to have the skill or the expertise to really use black eyeshadow. Black eyeshadows and palettes are kind of a wasted pan for me. It did blend out pretty easily, I will say. It's just not something I'm used to. Gates is sneezing. I'm literally just applying minuscule microscopic amounts at a time. It is very black and it is very matte, and by applying a little bit at a time, I will say it is blending. It does blend. It doesn't just stay in one spot. So it is not a bad black. It's just, it is very black, so the name is accurate. And for someone like me, it's just not really something I necessarily have the skill to work with, I don't think. But it is really nice though, like it is, you can see it does add a lot of depth to this look. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit on the edge of this flat brush and see if I can do some inner corner work with it, because it's so black. Oh yeah, that's really pretty. And actually, I feel like I can really get a much more precise application as opposed to using black pencil liner because I'm using the edge of a razor thin brush. But yeah, this is like one of those shades where like I'm using such tiny amounts. I don't know how people ever finish black eyeshadow. But I do like how I'm kind of able to like contour my eye with it. Okay, I'm gonna try and replicate all of this on the other eye. Yeah, you can see it is blending out very readily, which is pretty awesome. So I would say just, you know, go really slow. So yeah, kudos to Natasha Denona. This is a pretty good black. And my current favorite black powder matte is from Mothership 1 Subliminal. That was not as bad as I thought it would be. I was like super anxious, but actually it turned out okay. I accidentally put a little bit more on this inner corner than the other one, but that's okay. So now they both can just look a little heavy. Oops. Yeah, I really like that. Okay. We are on a good track. So I said earlier I kind of wanted to use Risk on the lower lash line for like a pop of color, so don't really know if I'm feeling it, but I still do think it would not be fitting to this video for me to not use every single shade in the palette at least once. I do apologize for not really having like a true look to fit it into, but I literally wasn't even thinking about it and I just forgot it existed until I did the third look and realized that I need to use this. So here we are. So I'm just going to use another brush. I'm just using one from Sigma and I'm gonna just drop this right here. Again, it's kind of that smoother formula, so it's not going to be as obviously shiny. It also has a darker base to it. It is really pretty, but to me it feels rather out of place. Everything else in this palette has a much more feminine air to it, honestly, and even the darkest tones in this palette are kind of pinky purple. So this being just a straight dark red shimmer is rather strange, but you know, I'm not an eyeshadow palette creator. I mean, it's alright. It's an interesting shade to say the least. Again, I just don't really know where it belongs in this palette. I'm not sure what I would match it with if I tried to use this as the star of a show. And I think I could use some black on the inner corner of my upper lash line, which is something I pretty much never do. It's barely visible when my eyes are open, but it does add just a little bit more depth to the entire thing. And I do like how you can layer blackest black over shimmers and it looks still really good. I think Thrill will at least echo the red a little bit since there's some pink in Thrill. And I've used Spontaneous literally in every single look leading up to this, so today we're not going to do that. And I love how glittery it is, so it really just feels like I'm putting on kind of a veil of color. So even though it's not like super bright compared to Spontaneous, its glitteriness means that it will still add a lot of liveliness to my inner corner. And it will contrast a lot more with the smoother shimmers that have been laid down. The only thing is that as I turn my head, you can definitely see some cast, but like it's really not that big a deal to me. And then just for consistency, I'm gonna put a tiny bit just right here. Now applied with this looser brush, this shade is giving me a little bit of sparkly fallout, but that's alright, I don't mind too much. Okay, so that's going to finish off this look. Super simple and subdued, but with a little pop of red. So let's go ahead and use the face trio. So with everything being on the cooler end today, I'm going to use the entire face trio. I think that'll be a fitting end to this palette's saga. And as I've said before, it works best for me with a looser, softer synthetic brush, the blush, because the blush is actually quite matte. I'm going to work on applying this blush. Yeah, this blush definitely really fits with most of this palette. So it's not like the most cohesive collection because the Dream palette is actually kind of surprisingly all over the place. So it feels to me like one of the less cohesive palettes when used on its own, but it does on an individual level contain some of my favorite kinds of shades. So I really like the palette, but using the palette in its entirety, a little bit kind of an exercise in frustration. So make of that what you will. Her palettes, of course, do all complement each other very nicely, so I think if you pair Dream with either Retro or Glam, you'll get a pretty nice result. As you can see, I really like applying her blush pretty widely. I did apply a light layer of powder to my face today, but nothing lifts. The glow cream base is the everything of this, and I really like to just dab it on with my finger. Yeah, the first time I used the glow cream base, I didn't want to have too much of a reaction to how beautiful it was, because I didn't want to seem like I'm overreacting, but legit, this is so pretty. And it is light enough for me to use as a nose highlight. The perfect highlighter for your lips because of how slightly balmy it is. Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with this. And then I'm gonna I haven't used this under the brow yet, so I will do that today. Really pretty. Yeah, it looks good everywhere. And I even think if you didn't mind using this on your eyelids, it would work on your eyelids. Alright, so I'm gonna finish out the rest of my makeup, put on my eyelashes, and then I'll be right back and we'll discuss my final thoughts and do a comparison to Glam. So I know this video has been really long, but I hope this has been really thorough for you guys so far. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look. I love how simple and elegant it looks. Everything just to me feels like I didn't overdo anything. Everything is super simple and minimal while also still making the end result pretty. It just feels really pretty. I always end up with something really pretty when I use Natasha Denona, which is one of the reasons I like her so much. I feel like I have to do the least amount of prep work, the least amount of consideration, and the least amount of elbow grease to make her shadows work for me, and I don't feel like they draw out my eyelids. I really feel like I can pile on layers and layers of pigment when using her shadows, and I never seem to reach a level where it's gonna eventually just kind of start to just crumble off my eyelid, which does happen with other brands, and you've definitely seen it happen to me on camera with other brands. For my lips, I used Piquant Heart. It's the Roman Zero Velvet Tint. So as you can see, this is the older lip formula that they had before they came out with the Blur Fudge. It is not as matte as Blur Fudge, but I do think it's a little bit less drying. I have Cloud 9 1.0 on my eyelid. But yeah, that's gonna be everything. I really like this look. I love all 4 looks I did with this. Not a single one I think turned out badly. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this, and now I'm going to compare Glam and my Dream. So I've been looking at it for a couple of minutes now, and I actually think they're a lot more different than I thought they were going to be. My Dream is actually pretty, it's so boring, but at the same time it's not actually really overlapping with her other range of shadows, which surprised me. So I'm only going to compare it to Glam because that's the only one I was really curious about, particularly with the look I have on right now. They're not actually that similar. They're actually very different, and even the darkest brown in this palette still has way more brown versus the borderline gray. As you can see, the darkest shade in here is way more gray. So here on my, I'm gonna zoom in for you guys. So here is my index finger here. This is from my Dream. As you can see, it's a lot more brown, has a little bit more of a warm hint to it, and you can see elements of gold as it catches the light. And then these two are from Glam, and as you can see, first off, they're a little bit more sparkly, but second off, any of that warmth that is in the shade from My Dream is completely gone. So these are definitely way more gray. This one even has a little bit of a green undertone, olive undertone to it, which is super cool. Now, do they read the same on the eyelid? It depends on who you're talking to. If you went to art school and you suffered through a ton of color theory and you're like me and you wear makeup because you just like looking at your eyelids throughout the day, then yeah, you probably can tell the difference. But if you're not and you're just wanting, you know, an easy taupey shadow as a one and done look, I don't think you necessarily are gonna care about the differences between these. Everything else in those palettes is actually surprisingly different, and I didn't think that it was therefore worth doing any super in-depth comparisons like I initially was planning, because actually between Retro and Bronze and this My Dream and Glam, it's kind of like 4 neutral middies for people to pick from, but none of them actually have significant overlap with each other, which really surprised me because I totally thought they would, but they don't. I didn't feel like I was buying a redundant palette, and it's not, and I certainly didn't feel like I was buying a palette where she literally copied and pasted from multiple palettes and dumped it into one palette. She certainly did not do that. The only shade is the Triochrome in here. It's kind of similar in shift to the Triochromes in Triochrome, but very few people actually have Triochrome. It's her bigger palette. It is technically limited edition, so I don't actually know if at the time of this filming it's going to be available, and if you're watching this far into the future, I don't know if it's going to be available then. And this also, the Triochrome in here is also just vastly superior to the Triochromes in Triochrome, and honestly nobody has Triochrome for the Triochromes. They have it because of the mattes. The only thing is that it's a little bit chaotic compared to her other palettes, but it could be also just that particularly Glam and Bronze are far more monochromatic and far more tight in terms of color concept versus My Dream is a little more spread out. So if anyone wants to get it, I don't think you're going to be disappointed by it in the slightest. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys want comparisons between specific shades in Retro and Bronze, you're welcome to ask, and I can post photos in the community tab. And in the meantime, that's going to be it from me. I know this video has dragged on for long enough. I hope everything was helpful to you. I hope a lot of your questions about this palette got answered. The face trio blew my socks off. I really have nothing more to say about the face trio because it was just so surprisingly good. You guys have seen me demo it with every single look I've done in this video, which is one of the reasons this video is so long. It is, and the blush shade in and of itself is actually pretty unique to my collection. I don't have many neutral, leaning, cool blush shades. Most of my blushes are rather warm, so this is definitely kind of a unique shade for me, and it actually flatters me a lot more than I thought it would. I was a little scared of it, but it's actually really pretty, so I think, you know, especially if you have a similar skin tone, olive undertones to me, you're gonna find it to be real pretty on you. I'm now like wanting to have its hand in marriage kind of a situation. But yeah, that's gonna be it from me. I really hope this video was helpful. I put so much effort into it for you guys, and I had so much fun filming this. And if you have any more questions about this collection or anything Natasha, you just please ask me in the comments and I will answer if I can. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!